Hello and welcome to this edition of Defacto Review, a weekly roundup of the biggest stories shaping Mongolia. Here with us tonight, commentator and economist Jargal Defacto.
Good evening.
And I am Milena Mendes. And we are live on Facebook at V Television. We also love to hear what you're thinking, so send us your thoughts on Twitter with hashtag #Jargal_Defacto. Coming up on this show tonight. Protests continue as data shows most vulnerable families slide below the poverty line. Parliament confirms cabinet, but finance minister appoints leaves the president dissatisfied. President Batulga questions whether Mongolia made the right decision in banning the death penalty. Ulaanbaatar to host Tokyo Olympic Games qualifier tournament for basketball. Poverty line keeps rising here in Mongolia. Nearly 1 in 3 Mongolians were living in poverty in 2016, according to a report released on Thursday, as 1,000 teachers prepared to hunger strike for their demand for higher wages. The report, titled Poverty Situation 2016, was released by Mongolia's National Statistic Office and the World Bank, found that the poverty rate increased by 8 percentage points from that of 2014 to hit 29.6%, Xinhua reported. It means that nearly 1 million Mongolians out of a population of 3 million people were actually living in poverty. The data comes as teachers from all 21 of Mongolia's provinces announce their hunger strike in response to government's lack of action on its demand for higher wages. The group, which includes 5 teachers from each province, says it wants government to discuss the possibility of higher pay for at least 15 days, according to GoGo News. So Jargal, many protests have been taking place, especially here in the capital in the past few months. And it seems like the government is not really listening to the teachers' claims. So what should the parliament consider doing to see the teachers in classroom rather than on the streets protesting?
Well, it is not only teachers, now doctors, nurses, and some other public service officers are coming, or occasionally, and they also protest in their own way to increase their salary. And the main reason you have been quoting the statistics about the poverty line, let me give you some lights on that. What is the poverty line in Mongolia is, according to this World Bank and National Statistic Office, if someone has less than 146,000 Mongolian 2 weeks income or consumption, or income both ways, per month, that person and the family also is regarded under poverty line. And as you said, over 300,000 people went down for the last 2 years since our last estimation. It's very serious cases where the economy gained, because the economy completely depends on the mining, because the growth of economy went so slow, so people faces this sort of poverty. Government is paying attention to that, but they mostly through more care, paying some money, which does not solve completely the problem. The poverty is coming because unemployment. Employment is to be given by private sector, not by the government. So there is some miscalculation on that. And plus, recently, for private sector, it's harder to hire Mongolians, and that's why we have more unemployment. Many Mongolians want to leave, either leave. Now the workers in Korea, Mongolians, have increased substantially. So people are leaving because it's very hard to find a job. Mm-hmm. Hard to find a job because for private sector to hire a Mongolian as employee is very hard, because you pay almost 20 to 30% social insurance for the worker. Right. The worker does not pay directly to the government, which is a big problem. So because all this reason, there are less and less employment opportunity, more poverty, more people are leaving the country, and the many sectors are not competitive, and that's the reason why poverty is increasing. The other thing is too much government in business. because we have more and more state-owned companies. In particular, mining sectors, major mines are now state-owned. And a bad example of very bad operation of the state-owned companies, for example, at Tavantolga, the largest coking coal project, state-owned company has a part of it. Private company has also a smaller part of it. But they're selling the price is 3 times difference. So state-owned companies are selling almost 3 times less than the private companies, which is kind of damping the price. So that's the result why we are having this poverty. So Mongolia is more suffering from lack of the market economy rather than the sufficient economic activities.
Right, and we can't say that the teacher salaries are actually under the poverty level, but the constant protests are showing their insatisfaction. So what is the relationship? What can you say is the relationship between poverty level and education and the doctors and everyone else that's insatisfied?
We talk about social services that a private company cannot do, and social education and healthcare sectors where we spend a lot of money. For example, for education, we spend from 5 to 6% of our GDP. But this money is not enough to cover all the costs to the satisfactory level. So it's a concern of policy issue, quality issue of education. So, and it is also in Mongolia, because it's a cold country, a lot of money goes to heating, though it is regarded as the budget for education. And we have a lack of schools in cities, but lack of students in countryside, because many people are migrating from Ulaanbaatar city, or from Ulaanbaatar city to Korea or somewhere else.
Other countries, yeah. Well, we'll see where the protests go. Moving on to our next topic. Khurelsuk's cabinet remains unfinished. Prime Minister Ugna Khurelsuk has finished building his cabinet, but not without controversy, as President Halkma Batulga rejects his finance minister pick. Parliament voted to confirm all the 15 cabinet appointments, including Che Khurelbatar as finance minister. The new government's structure closely resembles the old one, with no cabinet positions being new added or removed. However, President Batulga has weighed in to rejected the nomination of Che Khurelbatar because of Khurelbatar's alleged personal interests in mining. The president said, quote, "The money which comes from mining leads to injustice in every sector and breaks the morals, codes, and standards of the state," unquote. What can we say about the ministers?
Well, it is not the mining money itself that makes bad. It is the way the government is run. It's the way how it is not transparent. Concerning the new cabinet, people would expect a lot of changes. Somehow, Mongolians believe that with the changes of the cabinet, everything will be changed, which is not the case, in particular in this case, because this time all 15 ministers are all parliament members, which was never case before. Only who is not parliament member is Prime Minister himself. So, one. Secondly, each minister is nominated or approved by their parliament, not by their prime minister. What does it say? It says that the prime minister has a position with less power. He cannot exercise hiring and firing power on ministers. So it is again the same design, same structure like before. I don't think it will be substantial changes. Even more than that, it may be even weaker in the sense that each minister, de jure and de facto, higher than prime minister, because each of them are parliament member. They have a power of executive, the legislative power. Prime minister is the only person who is not parliament member. So which may create some unusual situation in the country in case of big disputes. One. Secondly, as I said, design is not changing, but the ministers' faces, names are different, of course. But however, changing cabinet doesn't mean really the substantial change in the economy when we have more state-dominant companies running, and for example, Mongolian Airlines, right, which is controlled by politicians. If Mongolian Airlines was private, for example, or shareholders company, owned majority by not government, then Mongolian tourism could be completely different. Tourism is the second sector which can create so many jobs in countryside and in the city, which is not the case. And we still remaining most closed air traffic country, and which with more monopolistic prices of Mongolian Airlines in combination with other airlines under the name of code sharing. So still Mongolia is not taking completely whole potential for development of tourism, one. Secondly, on the government, this is the another point I want to tell, that we have lost the balance of three powers: legislative, executive, and judicial. Why? Because out of 76, 15 is becoming 76 parliament members, 15 is becoming cabinet members. And this is the complete loss of balance between executive power and legislative power. Who can control? And the ministers can suggest or be dominant to have a law that supports completely their causes. So that's one concern. In general, again, Mongolian government is not doing completely that transition we started 27 years ago. We started to make a transition towards full democracy and market economy, dominance in the economy, which is not the case. The state is not doing the things they're supposed to do, which is three things. They have to protect three things. One, our security. Second, our freedom, right. Third, our property. Instead, they are not doing exactly the protection of properties, because big confusion of state and private, and a big mass in education system and the healthcare system. In the healthcare, we are confusing a doctor works for both. Around each, we have three major clinical hospitals. We call it polyclinics.
Right.
And around them, there are so many other private clinics, small clinics, for which the doctors work all alone. So there's big confusion of private and public sector, the same with our medical care insurance, etc. So we have a lot of things to bring order, more transparency in the cabinet. And we were expecting the state will do all the things that the private companies cannot do. Like, for example, some infrastructure, large projects. Private company cannot do it. Even if they can do it, they cannot be paid straight or on the spot when the service is delivered. So this sort of things is run by state companies, nothing more. But state is doing beyond that. And plus the level of transparency, we have always conflict of interests. And by the way, this time our cabinet members are not less poor than the previous one. It's again wealthy people. Some has 26 companies, private companies. So we don't have enough report whether they are transferring their rights to run or the interests, private interests, to the trustee or trust fund, whatever. We don't see the proper report. We just see a report that how many percent in each company or whole company they own. So a lot of things to do in that sense.
And yeah, there is a lot of things to do. So first things first, what do you think are the priorities for the cabinet right now?
Priority is, again, payment of debt. And that is coming in February, in January, $500 million of Chinggis bond. And in March, $160 million samurai dim sim bond, which is in yuan, 1 billion yuan, Chinese money, raised in Hong Kong stock market. So altogether, the first quarter, they need to pay this amount of money. How they can do? Only way, like last time again. They have to, there's no other way, in order to not to announce default. They need to raise another fund, they need to sell another bond, which we expect about 700 or so million US dollar. Probably it will be with the longer term, because it should be about probably another longer term than 5 years. And of course, with higher interest rate. The last time it was around 8% we could sell our bond. Now it's to be around 9 to 10%. So basically what's happening is Mongolians are not reading off our foreign debts. We are just extending them with longer term, low bonds and higher interest rate, which does not decrease the load of budget just to pay interest rate. Along with that foreign debt, Mongolian government is issuing, again, started to issue now, domestic bond, which, okay, rate is a little bit different, 11+%. It was even 17+%, competing with the commercial banks, which made commercial banks very idle. They, instead of giving a loan to the economy, they were buying state budget. So it was kind of double traps. So that's the first priority, to pay the debt first. Second, how to deal with this poverty, how to increase or help these doctors, nurses, teachers who are demanding a higher salary. So it will require quite much diplomacy, I think, new policy, which very much limited. Very much limited. I don't think they will solve the issue issuing money or printing money, which will cause just inflation. So it is not really a situation where the new government wants to be, but it is very hard. So this is the second priority. Third, probably, well, ADB is giving 1.2 billion US dollar, including 500 million US dollars goes for diversification of the economy. I don't know how ADB is working on that regard. What is the operation cost of ADB? We don't know that. They don't report us. I wish they report us. With this cost, how much exactly Mongolian economy will be diversified? Can public watch that expenses? What is the efficiency of the money? It is not technical grant money. It is the money we pay one day from our salary through taxes. So we want to know what's going to happen with this ADB money, with the World Bank money, about the conditions of which we have no clue. Just we have now all this on the direction. So we have to borrow money, but we want to know exactly, as a public, as a civic society, and which conditions this government this time is receiving the money. Because at the end, it is not the government, it's we who are paying. That's the concern of Mongolians, I think, today.
Well, we have to keep watching their work, but we're going to move on to our next topic. Batulga establishes a working group to restore the death penalty. The president has established this group of lawyers to work for the restoration of the death penalty here in Mongolia. Quote, Mongolia is not in the position to be able to abolish the death penalty, unquote, the president said. And he continued, we should consider abolishment of the death penalty once our society, community, and the people settle down, unquote. Former President Tsahia Elbergoj first moved to ban the practice in 2012, and the prohibition became law in 2015. Before then, Mongolia allowed the execution of individuals found guilty of committing the crimes of child abuse and aggravated assault. What reasons did the President Batulga give to try and restore the death penalty?
Well, recently we have been witnessing whole society several very severe criminal cases where children's rights were violated, big violence, rapes, the sort of very disturbing events making people angry with the penalty case, capital penalty, death penalty. But it doesn't mean that because we have introduced death penalty, the crime is increasing. So first of all, as a president, he is to express the wills of people. So that's what he is doing. But however, I think the society now has to discuss with very clear, a very deep research, whether that capital penalty or death penalty allows the crimes coming up or not. The murder cases, right, suicide cases. And for that, I think this society is going to discuss long time about that, and possibly with further research. But I would like to remind a case where in the US, a professor from Dartmouth College, John Lamberti, 2010, made a report on cases of differences between states. Some states have a death penalty, some have not. So in between them, they have met for 10 years, since 1973 till 1984. Then what they found out is where they have a death penalty states, they have a less crimes, or it's called killings. Killings, 5.2 for 100,000 people. Case, okay? 3.3 for 100,000 people. This crimes, right? The involving people death. But the states which has death penalty, there is a 5.2%. It's higher. So this is the very interesting observations. Death penalty introducing doesn't mean that there will be less crimes. That's first case. Second case, this report saying that the truck driver from Oklahoma was killed on the road, cafe or whatever he's sitting or was drinking. He was shot in Texas by a shotguns. Later on, why you shot him? Explanation was, he said, I'm tired living like this. So what happens is in Texas, this guy who is tired living in this way, whatever in his way, he's killing the truck driver so that he is killed by the law instead of killing himself. So this is two interesting studies. We Mongolians have to discuss it. And certainly we need to nationwide, very deep discussions on that issue.
Do you think the decision is likely to get through Parliament? Or if there are objections, what do you think would be?
I don't think it will be introduced very quickly. I think at least any law in Mongolia, we have now law on law, which says any law, new law amendments, must have a very research evidence that it's right, it serves better than before. So I think the country they will have more discussions, and in my turn, I would like to have de facto debate, our debate program on this issue, whether it's right or not to abolish the death penalty. So I think it's just the beginning of, like any democratic country, we should have a larger and deeper discussions.
Right, not to make any more mistakes. And our final topic tonight is about sports. The International Basketball Federation 3-on-3 Asia Cup 2017 will take place here in Ulaanbaatar from October 27th through 29th, this upcoming weekend. It is the most important 3-on-3 competition for national teams in Asia and, for the first time, Oceania. Mongolia will host its second edition, and the inaugural was held in Qatar in May 2013. Myanmar Luvsandash, event promoted and member of Mongolian National Olympic Committee, said, quote, "We hope that hosting this event will create a path for Mongolia to become the top national 3-on-3 team in Asia in the next few years," unquote. The Mongolian women's team, the national team, won silver in the 2013 Cup, the first edition. So last July, Mongolia hosted a preseason FIBA 3-on-3 World Tournament, which I actually was present. Brazil was actually competing, and Mongolia had 5 teams here representing the country, and it is an impressive event because definitely it's a passion for Mongolians. So given this sport is such a big passion in Mongolia, how positive is it for the country to be hosting this kind of events here?
Well, I should congratulate our Olympic Committee with this sort of good attempt to be a part of bigger sport movement, Olympic movement in the world. It's I think almost second or third time we are introducing new sports qualifying competition in Mongolia. 3-on-3 is you play basketball on the half of the basketball
court,
play court, and 3 persons against 3. One is sitting in the reserve, so consisting of 4 persons in a team. 3 of them are competing. What's very democratic and nice about this 3-on-3 basketball is it can be mixed gender, different ages, which make more I would say democratic? This game. And plus Mongolians, we used in our generation, starting from our probably generations long time, we like basketball. Mongolians in general like very much basketball.
Very much.
And you know what? Along with the other mostly wrestling sport, Mongolians have now more chance to go to other types of games. And by the way, we have per capita probably the largest amount of Olympic champions, in particular Olympic female wrestler champions. Right. We're happy with, but at the end, that sport I think will be compensated by this passion, will be compensated by this basketball play. And you know, frankly, I think Mongolians will have a more chance, usually with more individual play, like wrestlings, boxing. But now I think the future also is good for Mongolian tennis players, or big tennis players, and golf players. You know why golf? I think from now, 20 years from now, if we start preparing now young girls for golf, these girls will have a good chance.
That's
to
a good
play
projection.
Very well. And plus, because golf has a lot future in this country, because in summer we play golf, in winter we can ski. This sort of combination in one place, like Sky Resort now, can be a good attraction for tourists. Because Southeast Asia, in winter they have less snow than us, and our summer is very good for golf. Not like in Southeast Asia where plus 40 to 50 degrees. It's almost impossible to play there. So that's what I'm dreaming about. You know? And I believe there is a strong tourism future in these 2 sports.
We have a golf player right here. We have to mention that this Asia Cup, it is actually a qualifier for the next Olympic Games to be held in Tokyo in 2020. Well, unfortunately, our time's coming to an end. Jorgel, last words for tonight?
Thank you. We will post this one. It was first on V Television live on Facebook, and we will post on tomorrow on our website, jargaldefacto.com. And thank you very much for watching us. Good night.
Thank you again for staying with us tonight, and I hope you have a good week. See you in Mongolia. Bye-bye.